Hi, Merrill Cubs. So, we're talking all about self regulation this week, and one of our stories that we're going to be looking at is one of my favorites called Clark the Shark. And this book was written by Bruce Hale, and it was illustrated by Guy Francis. And this book talks all about having self regulation. So, let's dive in. In all the wide blue seas and all the wide blue world, the top school for fish was the Theodore Roosterfish Elementary, and all of the fish at Theodore Roosterfish, the biggest and the strongest was Clark the Shark. Here he is, getting off the school bus. Clark loved school, and he loved his teacher, Mrs. Inkydink. He loved to play upsy-downsy and spin-a-majig with his friends. Clark loved his life. "School is awesome!" shouted Clark the Shark. "Less shouting and more reading," said Mrs. Inkydink. "Lunchtime is sweet!" yelled Clark the Shark. "Munch on your own lunch," said his best friend Joey Mackerel. "Recess rocks!" bellowed Clark the Shark. "You were playing rough, Clark," cried the other kids. Yes, Clark loved his life with all of his sharky heart, but everything he loved was way too much. He was too loud, he was too wild, he was just too much shark for the other fish to handle. After a while, no one would play with Clark. No one ate lunch with him. No one sat with him at circle time. And even his best friend, Joey Mackerel, said, "Cool your jets, Clark. You're making me crazy." It's not making him feel very good when no one wants to hang out with him. One day, Clark asked Mrs. Inkydink, "What's wrong with everyone?" Mrs. Inkydink patted his fin and said, "Clark, sometimes you play too hard. You munch too hard, and gosh, you even help too hard." "But life is so exciting," said Clark. "There's a time and a place for everything," said Mrs. Inkydink, "and sometimes the rule is to stay cool." At recess, Clark tried to stay cool, but he pushed the swing with too much zing. "Sorry," said Clark. "I forgot." "Yikes," cried Joey Mackerel. Ooh. At lunch, Clark tried to stay cool, but everything smelled so good that he munched a bunch of lunches. "Sorry," said Clark. "I forgot." "We're starving," said his friends. He ate all their lunches. In class, Clark tried to stay cool, but a good book got him all shook up. "Now, Clark," said Mrs. Inkydink, "this isn't the time or the place. Tell me, what's the rule?" "Stay cool," said Clark. "Hey, that rhymes," he said. Then Clark got a big idea in his sharky head. Maybe if I make a rhyme, I'll remember every time. The next day, he put his plan to work. In class, when lessons got exciting, Clark wanted to bounce up out of his seat. Instead, he told himself, "When teacher's talking, don't go a-walking." And what do you know? It worked. "Attaboy, Clark," said Mrs. Inkydink. Clark smiled. Lessons are fun. At lunch, everything smelled so yummy. When Clark wanted to eat and never stop, he told himself, "Only munch your own lunch." And it worked again. "Way to go, Clark," said his friends. Clark grinned. Lunch is fun. At playtime, Clark told himself, "Easy does it, that's the way. Then my friends will let me play." And playtime was fun once more. Clark loved his life. But then a shadow fell across the playground, a ginormous shadow with tentacles galore. It's a new kid and he looks scary, cried Joey Mackerel. Swim for your lives! The squid squashed the slide and it snapped off the swings. Oops, my bad, said the new kid. Wait, said Clark. He just wants to play. Let's find a way. And he swam at the new kid with all of his might. Clark played harder than he ever had before, upsy-downsy and spin-em-a-jig. Why, he even made up a new game, Tail Wumpalumps. Wow, that was fun, said the new kid breathlessly, and he settled down. If you want to come to school, you gotta stay cool, said Clark. That's right, Clark, said Mrs. Inky-Dink, and thanks for taking care of our new classmate, Sid the Squid. Hooray for Clark the Shark, everyone cheered. That night, Clark's mother asked, What did you learn at school, dear? There's a time and a place for everything, Clark said. Sometimes you stay cool. But sometimes a shark's gotta do what a shark's gotta do. The end. So that's my friend Clark the Shark. Pretty great book. Talks all about having self-control and self-regulation. So at first, in our book, Clark was really struggling with having good, self-control. His body was out of control, and his voice was out of control, and his emotions were out of control. You know, he was shouting out when he wasn't supposed to be, or he's getting out of his seat. He was playing too rough with his friends. He even ate all of his friends' lunches. And what did that do for Clark? It made his friends not want to be near him anymore. And he didn't like that. It made him sad. So when Clark started to come up with a new way to kind of have some self-control and some self-regulation, he came up with a rhyme that helped him remember what he was supposed to do and all of those different situations at school. And those rhymes helped him to keep his body and his emotions in good self-control. So I hope that you learned a little bit about self-regulation from this book. It's one of my favorites, and I want you to think about what it's like to be Clark the Shark when he's not using good self-control or self-regulation and when he is. And I'm thinking that life was a lot better for Clark when he was using his self-regulation. All right, my friends, think about some times that you use self-regulation at home and some ways that you could help somebody else maybe even use good self-regulation. Till next time.